I'm now in my kitchen and we're going to start to do some dyeing. These are the trays that I use to dye with, and here are all my dyes, food coloring and Koolaids. I use a regular food coloring, and I also use the neons. I believe that's a new brand, and it also makes some fantastic colors. So we're going to do some dyeing. This is Blue Face, and that's what we're going to dye. I got it, ordered it in from the States, and it comes in rovings like this. And it comes in one piece, and so I measured out 200 inches of roving because that's what fit in my pan, and that is about 4.4 ounces, 4.3, 4.4 ounces of the Blue Face. The merino is a little bit lighter for 200 inches. It is about 3.7 ounces. So the first thing we do is we have these large pans. This pan here I picked up at the local thrift store, and these pans here are throwaway pans. You can use them for probably a month or two, and then they end up getting little holes in them and you have to throw them out, but you can get them at probably any of your grocery stores if you want to start yourself off until you've collected enough of the large pans. You can also use the turkey pans, turkey roasters, those work as well. So I start off by layering, weaving in and out the roving back and forth in the pan. So I make sure that the roving is in there as evenly as possible. I'll go back and I'll rearrange it. Since you're working with such a large piece, it's hard to get it perfect the first time. And you don't want it overlapping each other. You want it resting beside each other. Next, I have a total of 5 cups. So 2 cups of white vinegar and 3 cups of water. So, and that works for these pans and for 200 inches of roving. Then I pour it in evenly. And I have to be careful. If I pour it in too quickly, then the fiber, as you saw in that corner, pops up. So I don't want that, because then I'll have to just spend a whole bunch more time rearranging the fiber to keep it down. As I said, you don't want it overlapping, or else you're going to get coloring in spots where you don't want it, and you'll end up with white spots as well. If you're dyeing solid and you don't want white spots, then you don't want it overlapping. So then you gently press down on the roving, and don't play with it too much, because it does become matted if you knead it. So you're just pressing gently and holding. And I find that the Blue Face actually absorbs the water and vinegar much quicker than the merino does. So you'll find that you'll end up having to spend more time pushing down the merino. Next, you're going to lay out the colors that you want to use for dyeing. I dye mine in layers, in sections like this. And for this pan, the kids and I talked about doing watermelon. So we're going to do a watermelon roving. So I'll get the colors ready. Okay, so I'm first going to use a green, a dark green food coloring, and then the lime green, which it's a neon green, and then I'm going to go into a pink and then a red. I'm going to try and leave a little bit of space in the middle for a little bit of white. So we'll see how it goes. You never know until you actually start working with it, how it's going to actually look. Sometimes you use too much dye in it and it's too dark and it's hard to get it light again. If you have done that, I have in the past added a little bit more water on top, and I find that's the best way to lighten it up a bit, but sometimes there's not much you can do. So I've added several drops to the fiber, and I'm using a fork and I'm pushing it in, and I'm careful not to catch the fork and pull the fiber up. I don't want to do that. So right now I'm just doing the top. You'll see in a minute I'll have to go underneath, but I want to add more color. I want this darker. I've also found that the blue face roving doesn't, the colors are lighter when I dye it. So I'll try and use more dye with the blue face and see if I can get a bit richer dyeing than the merino. The merino I find dyes very nicely. It absorbs the colors really well. So I'll try adding a little more dye and see if I can make the blue face absorb it like the merino does. So I want to make sure that the under part of the fiber also gets dyed, so I will move it around a bit. You can see how the under part is light. So you need to make sure that you're dyeing both sides of this fiber. So you need to move it around in the pan a bit so that it will also dye the under part. If you don't, it'll end up having white spots, and sometimes that's a nice effect, but if that's not what you're going for, then you'll be very disappointed if you don't move the fiber around and get right in the inside and underneath. So I'm ready to add my neon now. So I'll go ahead and add the neon. Now I'm gonna add it pretty close because I do want it blending in with the green that's already there. That's the end of that one. There. I don't want to have any white spaces in between my two greens. And again, moving that fiber over so that you are getting in between and underneath. So I left a bit of space when I added my pinks so that I had just a little bit of white, and I don't want my pink really dark. I want it to be that light pinkish color that you do see in watermelon. So I'm not going to go back too far. A little bit more. I don't want a large white space, just a hint of white there. And then I'm gonna, again, go in between. So I can get it underneath and in between. I've added my red And I'm gonna blend it up. And there's watermelon. It's ready to go in the oven at 250 degrees for 2 hours. And there it's finished now. This is the watermelon roving blue face, and it is already dry and braided up and ready to store or ready to sell. I just have to label it now. It actually turned out really well. The colors took very, very nicely.